Alex, you know, as a player, you've worked under numerous managers, and as Frank says, you won't have got along with all of them. But you know, do you feel that the players have stepped away a little bit? Just goes to what Carrie has said. Do you feel the players have stepped away and they're more doing it for themselves than the club at the moment?
I think it's hard from a player's perspective because it has been going on for so long.
Does it affect you as a player?
Week.
Does it?
Well, we're human. You know what's going on. You do read it. You can dismiss it to some extent, but you know what's going on. And then when you're going into a training field and there's story after story, yeah, you just want to get out there and train. But it looms heavy if there's constant stories all the time, and it feels like it has been going on all season. So I can not see any outcome other than, you know, starting afresh.
I think one thing that probably Frank's experienced as well with Chelsea is there is a fascination with that football club, and it never ever goes. Doesn't matter where they are in the table, whether they're successful, whether they're changing their manager, whether they're looking at another manager, or looking to sign players, whether they win, lose or draw, there is a fascination in the media with that football club.
Did that start when Jose arrived, or was it before?
I think just before. The first season of Abramovich, 2003, 2004.
With Ranieri.
Yeah, with Ranieri. I think when we got to the Monaco semi-final of the Champions League, when we got to that point, and it broke that they'd met Mourinho on the boat, the Le Grand Bleu, which was moored just outside Monaco, because they couldn't fit it into the harbour, of course, it was so big. But they met Monaco that night. They met Mourinho that night, and I think that's when the fascination, because everyone wanted to know about Mourinho. He was hugely successful, of course, went on to win the Champions League that season. And I think that combination of the unlimited spending power of Chelsea at the time, the players they had, the players they're about to bring in, and the Champions League winning manager who announced himself at Stamford Bridge that day by saying, "I'm the special one." Then beyond that, we've never stopped looking behind the curtain of that football club.
And from your looking at it, you're a regular at Cobham, you're a regular at Stamford Bridge. Do you think, and they're going to come face to face again, obviously, at Wembley on Saturday, do you think Mourinho still looms large over Chelsea?
I think so. I think with this squad of players, there will be no doubt that this squad of players will be up for it entirely, that they all want to win this match against Jose Mourinho. I was talking to them about that, and they said, yeah, they know that he will come up with a trick. You can't predict him, but they know exactly how he'll set up the strategy for this game, how he'll want to go out and win it. So they're ready for that. They'll certainly want to get one over on Jose. That's very much with the players inside the camp. But I think there's ultimately a respect for everything he achieved there. And you have that with the fans, of course, when he went to Manchester United and he came back and was roundly beaten, and they of course, cheered Antonio's name. That was tough for him, but I think that's calming.
The conflict between the two has been fascinating. It feels like somebody's just put a blanket over it, though, leading up to the FA Cup final. Feels like there's almost like a kind of a non-aggression pact, you know, because if this was 6 months ago, they'd have been at each other's throats, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, that started before the last league game, didn't it? We were expecting a massive fight on the touchline or something, and it didn't happen because I think both sides, for good actually, started to put that blanket on, and the blanket hasn't come back off. It started to go a bit too far, didn't it? Really, I think some of the talk. It's all good fun.
Do you think? I mean, yeah, for the guys in the media, you know, for myself, for Carrie, that's brilliant. I mean, it's fodder for us, but it must be a distraction.
I think it's all good fun to a degree, and I just think that got on the verge of going too far, too personal. Which is what we love. We can't complain. We do love seeing it. We consume it everywhere. But I just think for the good of the game, all of a sudden you do get to the point where you're taking it away from the actual things that matter, which is on the pitch. And I'm pleased that we're going into a cup final talking about players rather than managers, particularly if it was going to be really negative stuff.
Is it partly as well because these two teams are, if you look at their two encounters, they were very close. Is it because these two managers do not want to incentivise each other's dressing room?
Maybe. I don't know if they would. I think they would shoot from the hip if they had to. You know, I don't know how. I don't know why actually. I think they actually realised it was going a bit too far. And in the end, when things go too far, who's coming out of it in any, you know, looking good? I don't think anybody. But I agree. My personal stance always going into a big game was never saying anything bad about the other side, because the minute you do that, then you're almost calling it on, like losing or something happening negatively against you. I would always boost them up, no matter what. I thought, yeah, they're a great team, amazing, they've been brilliant this year. Then beat them and then go bye-bye. You know what I mean? And that's it. Because otherwise, you're giving yourself a fall. It might be my kind of slightly sort of British nature of like, don't, you know, get too big for your boots before the win, because there's a big fall. But some of the foreign players aren't quite the same. They kind of go. I used to read quotes of some of my teammates going, "Well, we're going to win this game. We're playing brilliantly," and you think, "Oh no," just calling on a bad performance and a defeat. But I always try to say that. But that's why we love these managers, because they are different. They are different to maybe a lot of the rest of us. But the personality in them and the competitor and the fighting spirit is what we love about them. So that's why we do embrace it and love it.
And important, Ash, I think for Jose, given that he's been living in the shadow of Manchester City virtually from the first game of the season, important for him and for Manchester United to make at least some kind of statement this season.
Yeah, well, he's the ultimate trophy hunter, isn't it? I've always viewed his career that way. It doesn't matter how he does it, doesn't care how they play. He attaches the importance to whether his teams play as long as they win. That's the only thing that he cares about, and lifting silverware. I did think that this week to come down to the Grove, that this is very, very unusual. Normally teams travel the day before a game, and Mourinho has travelled with his Manchester United side 2 days before the game to rock up at the Grove in Hertfordshire, to pitch themselves there for 2 days before this final. I think we can see the importance of the trophy to Mourinho. We saw last season, how much it matters to him. Europa League final, planned to almost to every situation. Now, maybe Manchester United were far superior to Ajax, and they certainly were in that final and on that night. But it just felt as though he was ready and he's prepared for every eventuality and everything that can happen. Frank mentioned the variables, the different things that can happen. And it just strikes me that he prepares his teams that way. And to get one over on Conte, but I think more crucially at the weekend for him, the motivation with the fans, because they've turned against him. And
do you feel that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I feel sad for him in a way, because certainly, okay, I was there when they lost, was it 3-0, the first defeat to Manchester United. They were soundly beaten at Stamford Bridge, weren't they? And he patted the Manchester United badge as he walked off the pitch. I thought that was a mistake. He couldn't resist it, but I thought it was a mistake to do that. His allegiances, you've pledged your allegiances to Manchester United, and that, I think, severed all ties with Chelsea fans. When they came back for the FA Cup game in the January, I think they were beaten, N'Golo Kante scored the winner that night. And it was only a few fans, I think Carrie probably was there, that shallow East Terrace, the lower tier, it was just a few fans shouting Judas at him. But it was enough for him, and it triggered him. And straight after the game, when someone asked him about it, it was only a few, and he said, "Don't forget, I'm still number one. The guy who won 3 Premier League titles, the guy who delivered the first title at this club in 50 years. But I think beyond that, the fans they've turned, and I don't think there's a way back while he's the United manager.
What do you sense, Alex, about the Manchester United fans? Have they taken to Jose the way that Chelsea fans took to Jose?
I wouldn't say so. I think it's been a steady progress. And then when you see the likes of how Manchester City have performed and the way they've played football, I think some of the Man United fans are, well, we've spent X amount of money. We've got an array of superstars as well. We want to see that sort of football. But then at the same time, like Neil just alluded to, Mourinho is about winning silverware. No matter how he sets his team out, he's still delivering silverware. And I think that's why going into Saturday, once again, it will be about that. I don't care how I set my team up, but it's about winning. I don't care how.
Yeah, and we saw that in the semi-final, Carrie, against Spurs. I think Spurs playing on their home ground, as it were. I think they went in as favourites. Yet Manchester United, I don't know what the panel think, but Manchester United pulled off probably one of their most impressive performances of the season that day.
And you hope that there's going to be the flair and he lets those key players loose again and he doesn't just park the bus. I think it might be more tense. I think it might be more rigid. I think it's going to be more cautious. But I would hope that it was more of the Tottenham game that we saw.
Because he's got the ability to let the players off the... He's got the players that can play off the leash, if you like, hasn't he?
Yeah, loads of them. It was brilliant. They were brilliant against Tottenham. I thought that was textbook how to win a semi-final stroke final, because those close games, he organised himself brilliantly, having gone 1-0 down. I thought, huge credit. But I think he's become more pragmatic at Manchester United. And I think he was actually tired of a brush that he didn't deserve at Chelsea. Particularly, the first time round, we played great football and got called slightly boring when we weren't at the time. The second time round, he won the league with a team playing very good football. So I didn't quite. He knew how to win games. So occasionally he would, tighten up, and I think that was part of his style, and I liked it. But I think with the tools that he's got there, people see him as being too pragmatic, and they'd have an argument for that. So you would like to see them off the leash, because a Rashford off the leash would be a huge threat at the weekend. I don't think he'll even play necessarily. Sanchez is still finding his feet, but he ends up deep in midfield too much at the moment. So they're all issues. But I don't think Jose's not trying to bore people out of it. He just wants to win games. So I kind of love him for it at the same time. Albeit when I watch him, sometimes I go, "Oh, that's not great." I watched him against West Ham recently, and you expect a lot more. Do you know what I mean?
Was there ever a time at Chelsea, say he set you out in a certain way, the characters that you was like, could you go to him and be like, oh, maybe this, or was it he's weighing that a bit?
Not really. Not really. You know what? He never ever came to me or us and said. Only one time I remember we went to Manchester United in the first year with Paulo Ferreira and Gallas, or whoever, Wayne Bridge might have played left back. And I remember him saying, I don't want the full-backs overlapping, I don't want them going beyond the wingers. Because Manchester United, well known as probably the best counter-attacking team at the time, had those wingers as soon as they won it back, bang, bang. And it was exactly the right game plan. And I thought, that's smart. And other than that, he never ever went, oh, we're going to sit back and tighten up and all that thing and drop off. He didn't. So I don't necessarily think he's saying that to Manchester United, but there's certainly a theme about opening up that he doesn't want to do.
What was the build-up like for you, for Chelsea, in the week leading up to a big game, be it a Champions League final, be it an FA Cup final? What was it like? How did he raise your levels in training? How did he keep you calm? What was the mentality? What was his modus operandi in that week leading up to a huge game?
Balance. He would be very, very focused. So we would work on how we are going to counteract the other team, how we're going to go up against them with the ball, without the ball. But that's the norm, to be fair. Especially in the modern day, all managers do that, or if they're any good. But he would also, which I think was the magic of him, and I particularly remember this the first time around, was he'd have a joke. And as we go out, he'd say it funny, or one of his staff would say something funny, or there'd be a light moment, we'll have a five-a-side and there'd be a bit of a joke. So it really struck a lovely balance, because players need that, because it's the longest week ever, a week going into, and there's media things after training sometimes, and things that you don't really need because you want to focus, but so you have to balance it out. And I think he got that really, really well. And I remember the second time he came back and we played Manchester City, who were really flying at the time, we spent all week, and it wasn't a cup final, but we spent all week organising how Matic plays, and then he covers the left back and blah, 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 blah. All these things got really, really particular, and it worked. Well, they won 1-0, I was on the bench at that point. Rightly so, obviously, they won 1-0, but he is a details man.
Yeah.